Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We appreciate your time and your attendance. My name is Kimberly Castro. I am a project manager for the City of Deltona. Welcome. There is a sign-in sheet right to your left. If you RSVP'd with us, your information will be on the sheet. If not, if you wouldn't mind just filling that out. Again, Kimberly Castro, project manager with the City of Deltona. Today, we've asked you to come in to specifically educate you on a specific program that's available to us based on the disasters of the hurricanes that just passed us. As you know, FEMA provides individual assistance that you might have taken advantage of during this time. However, they have a more comprehensive program that they provide to different jurisdictions after disasters like the hurricanes that we just experienced. And so today we're hoping to educate you on these programs, what it means for our community, and some of the process that's involved with stepping through their processes in order to qualify and be eligible to take advantage of these programs. So again, it is through the Federal Emergency Management Administration, FEMA. The program is called the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. There's 2 or 3 variations and options that we'll go over today in the presentation, and be able to answer questions at the end and try to evaluate if we have residents here today that would be interested in moving forward with the program options that we have available. It's a new clicker. Let's see if it's associated with the computer. We'll just use the good old clicker. It's a view. And now it should let me. So what we wanted to kind of cover today as we go into these programs is some of the events that occurred within our city. We have our Deputy of Public Works here, Phyllis Wallace, to go over some of the efforts that were taken by our departments and some of what they experienced throughout the city. You're up, Phyllis.
I hate to speak with these, but that way everybody can hear me in case I don't speak loud enough, which normally I do. I'm Phyllis Wallace. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works. There's several people here that I know, Jerry, Alex, and yes. So this is in the area of where Jerry lives, Lake Windsor, and for those of you that won't ever be able to forget the storm event, the City of Deltona received in a very short amount of time from Ian 17 inches of rain in about 2 hours. And most of it, there, see, I told you, most of it was predominantly on what we call the eastern side of the city. What that means to most of the people sitting here is it impacted the Teresa Basin. This is aerial photography that was taken by one of our consultants shortly after that. So this is just an example throughout the city of what we experienced. And not unique to Deltona. We saw the devastation from the start down at Fort Myers all the way across through Volusia County and going out the other end. So, in my time at the City of Deltona, I've been here working for 11 years, but I've lived here since 1985. I have never seen this. I believe we're looking at Cortland Boulevard, but I could be mistaken. And as you can see, we had homes that were literally overtaken with water. This is of extreme importance to the city because this is Elkham Boulevard. What you're seeing is if you were turning on Elkham from Howland Boulevard going towards Providence, that is the section of the DuPont Lakes, and as you can tell, the road was flooded. This section of roadway was shut down for an extended period of time. And this is one of the projects that where our fingers are crossed The governor has not signed anything yet, but this was one of our projects that we proposed through appropriations to see if we could get money to elevate this road. Our concern was with life safety issues is how do you get people from end to end when a road is closed like that for an extended period of time? Many of you have attended meetings since the storms, and so you may have seen this depiction. The green is the Teresa Basin. That is one basin of 4 that we have, and as you can tell, how far that extends outside the city limits, goes all the way down, and then eventually, if we had control of the outfall, we would discharge to Lake Bethel and then onto the St. Johns River.
Want me to click it? Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is David Hamstra. I'll be wrapping things up with the discussion of options to protect your home through a grant, and towards the tail end, we're going to talk about options you can do individually to protect your home. So this is the first of 3 options that FEMA provides the homeowner to mitigate for future flooding, and this is simply what they call lifting or elevating a home. We are doing about 30 of these in New Smyrna Beach, Ormond Beach, Port Orange, where between Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Nicole, Ian, and past events, people just had enough and they want to go ahead and have grants submitted to elevate the home high enough that the floodwaters don't get inside anymore. And these are actual pictures that were taken before and after. Of the 3 alternatives we're going to discuss, these rank as the top 2 from FEMA's perspective, primarily because if we raise the house high enough, at least your contents are protected. You may have to get your car out of there, or you have to get out of there for your own safety, but when you come back to your house, your drywall, your AC, you can see on the picture on the right, the actual compressor is elevated as well as the home, and so is some of the pool equipment, the electrical equipment. So actually when you get back, your home is back to what it was, barring any damage to your lawns or your landscaping, which is minimal compared to your home. The second option is acquisition, where FEMA actually acquires your house and then they demolish it, and then the land goes to the city. We can never develop it anymore. We can make it a stormwater pond. We can make it a playground, but we can't build another home on top of it because obviously federal dollars have been spent to make sure that home doesn't flood anymore. Actually, this is your neighbors in DeBerry. This was from Tropical Storm Faye. We were able to get a grant for the city to acquire roughly 9 out of 10 of those homes to be acquired. The money they got from their homes, they moved to higher land, higher and drier ground, and the remainder of it has been undeveloped. They did end up building a playground right here. This one person decided not to come on board, and unfortunately he flooded for the next hurricane that came around. But this is an acquisition. This is FEMA's favorite because there's no risk of anybody filing claims any further. The last option, which used to be one of 3 easily, is now basically only fundable by FEMA if elevating your home can structurally not be done, meaning the slab is too thin, the home is just not strong enough to physically lift it. So in the case of if you choose to do an elevation and a structural engineer gives an assessment in your house and says we're not comfortable lifting it, then FEMA will consider this as a third option. And I'll give you a recent example where they're lifting a house in New Smyrna Beach. The concrete slab was so thin, and then we got about 8 inches off the ground when the floors collapsed. So first time in my 38 years I've seen that happen. So they're getting more and more advanced on doing what they call a scan of your concrete slab to make sure you have rebar in there or a welded wire mesh, where that welded wire mesh is, and it'll make a call whether or not extra protection should be done to protect a slab. So I'm going to go back up a little. This is FEMA's number 1 choice. This is their number 2 choice. And if your house cannot physically be lifted because of structural reasons, and then they'll allow this as a third option for consideration. So how do we choose and how do we lift it? From FEMA's perspective, the house has got to be at least 1 foot higher for the city of Deltona. Other areas it could be 1.5 feet or 2 feet higher, depending where you're in the state of Florida. But they want to have it at least 1 foot higher than the 100-year elevation. Now, as we saw from Hurricane Ian, which exceeded the 100-year, and we had horrific flooding, you all may choose to go a little bit higher than that, just to play it safe. Or, in some cases, in the city of Deltona, if you're on a slope piece of property, we also may choose to go a foot higher than the center line of the roadway, which may be higher than the 100-year elevation. Now, in those who live on the coast, we have to do so many feet above the 100-year elevation, plus we have to account for sea level rise. So if you added a couple extra feet, FEMA gives you some, I won't call them bonus points, but they give you some extra credit towards your application for going so many feet above the 100-year elevation and a couple more extra feet for sea level rise. And so if you're going up that high in the coast, they usually go 8 or 10 foot minimum, so you can park your car underneath it and turn it into a garage. So not a garage, you can't enclose it, a place to place your car. So the residents of Deltona and the city of Deltona has two options for looking for funding for residential homes. Now, I hate to use acronyms, but FEMA loves their acronyms, so I'll make sure I not continue to use them. But you'll hear the word HMGP quite often, which is a hazard mitigation grant, and FMA, which is flood mitigation assistance. Hazard mitigation grants become available after a declared event. We have a hurricane comes, the federal government gives the state of Florida so many dollars. Those dollars are distributed throughout the different counties that had suffered from the flooding, and then based on how much each county gets, we, the city, and all the cities within the county meet and discuss how we rank our projects for funding. So these dollars are only available after a declared event. The flood mitigation assistance is an annual submittal. Every September, you can go after FMA grants, but the drawback is you're competing against everybody throughout the United States. For hazard mitigation grant, it's just you and your neighbors throughout the state of Florida. So it's more likely to get it through the hazard mitigation grant, but if you don't want to wait for the next event, you can always file annually through the Florida Mitigation Assistance. We have been very fortunate to get several grants under FMA. A lot of houses in the Panhandle, they have an extraordinary weather pattern where they get like a 100-year event like every 2 years. It's crazy. But for those who don't want to wait for a hurricane, FMA is your choice. And I'll tell you the one benefit to it in a second. So declared event, money becomes available. So again, HMGP, hazard mitigation grant after a hurricane, FMA, flood mitigation assistance. And the big way to get your grant is FEMA's got to be convinced the money they're spending to do the work is less than the benefits, or the benefits are greater than the cost of doing the work. So they call that cost effective, where your benefit is actually exceeds your cost of doing the work, and therefore they can fund the project. So for example, if you only flooded for Ian and never before that, it'll be tougher to sell it versus if you flooded for Charlie, Francis, Jean, Tropical Storm Faye. If there's a history of flooding, then the number of benefits derived become far greater than the cost to do the work because you've experienced, unfortunately, multiple events. So we talked about this a few seconds ago. HMGP stays in the state of Florida. We're only competing against those counties in Florida that are going after the money. FMA, flood mitigation assistance, you're going against other states and other applications. Some of the requirements: you don't have to have flood insurance at the time the application is submitted for hazard mitigation grant. You do have to have it in place if you go after flood mitigation assistance. As far as what FEMA pays for, if you're considered to be cost effective, they will pay 75% of the cost of the project, and 25% is called the match. which is typically covered by the homeowner. Gets a little bit better, but more confusing if you go flood mitigation assistance. If you're not repetitive of loss or severe repetitive loss, which is terminology FEMA uses, if you've suffered multiple flooding events and actually made claims, if you are in that category, then FEMA will pay anywhere up to 90 or 100% of the cost of the project. So again, if you have documented claims of flooding, your best bet is go through flood mitigation assistance, and this way the amount of grant dollars can be as high as 90 or 100%. If you're lucky to have, lucky, I say that in a financial way, not from flooding, then you're being 100% covered for the cost of the work.
Aren't you fighting against the whole country, though?
It's competitive, so we better have a good story to tell.
Okay.
Yep. So FEMA looks at things as benefit cost analysis. If it's above 1, it's cost effective. The more you're above 1, the easier it is to sell the project. If the benefits and the cost only gives me a benefit cost analysis of like 1.05, we need to keep that in the state of Florida. It's because if you're above 1, the state will pay for it. But if you're going national, you better have a pretty high, low cost with a lot of benefits involved. So like we talked about before, what happens is when, well, we'll pick Hurricane Ian as an example. There was over several $billions in damages. The federal government takes 20% of those damages, puts it back in the states. For Hurricane Ian, FEMA gave the state of Florida $1 billion of grant dollars to be applied. Now, of course, that was given throughout all 67 counties. For Volusia County, they were earmarked for $64 million. We then met through the local mitigation strategy, which is the county and all the cities within the county to present our projects. The one that Phyllis had discussed earlier, Elkham Road, that's going to be a city project we're going to go after grant dollars for. We want to elevate that roadway so it doesn't go into water again, and I guess Catalina is the other one we're going to go after for grant funding. So we all meet collectively, Daytona Beach, Ormond Beach, everybody gets together, they present their projects, and then we rank them. And then once we tap out of that $64 million in the case of Ian, then we're eligible then to submit those applications to the state of Florida, which the current deadline for Ian is August 29th. Tonight's presentation is more going to be for the next money coming from Hurricane Nicole. We don't know what those dollars are yet, but there will be dollars coming towards Volusia County. So the purpose of today's presentation, if you are interested, after you hear the presentation and you sleep on it for a couple nights and decide, I'd like to be considered, we'll talk about the paperwork, and then we'll submit those projects to the county. And when the Nicole dollars come out, we'll make our similar pitch to those who want to be funding for consideration. Then we submit to the state reviews it, and eventually the grants get approved. And it's not a quick process. It takes 2 to 3 years from start to finish. So I don't want to mislead you that you give me the forms tonight and you get a grant next year and your house is elevated. It takes a little bit of pain and suffering time-wise to get those big dollars from the federal government to get these projects funded. This is dated. This is Hurricane Nicole. And the reason it was dated is because they were supposed to come out with how much money Volusia County was supposed to get by mid-April. We're already mid-May already. We don't know what those dollars are. So when the federal government and the state tells us how much Volusia County is getting for Nicole, then we'll meet, we'll rank them, and then we'll have 3 to 4 months in which to submit the application. So again, I want to preface these dates are already outdated because they haven't released the funding yet, and they're running behind. Ian was so devastating. They're predicting over 1,000 applications will be submitted for Hurricane Ian alone statewide. So the big question is, if you're considered cost effective, FEMA pays for 75% and 25% of it is by the homeowner. So on acquisition, demolition, or elevation, it is always a 75-25% match or breakdown. Demolition reconstruction, which is the third alternative, if you can't lift your home, doesn't always follow that breakdown because FEMA currently has a cap. They'll pay up to $150,000. If the cost is anything over that, is on the homeowner, and that can grow pretty quickly if you got a $400,000 project that you want to go under demolition reconstruction, and FEMA's cap is $150,000. The homeowner then would have to pay $250,000, which really, quite honestly, is not a viable financial option for you all if the costs get that high to demo and reconstruct it. So that's why FEMA pushes heavily on these two, because there's always going to be at least a 25% coverage of your costs. This is just an example. If it was a $300,000 project and you got a grant under elevation or acquisition, FEMA would pay $225,000. The homeowner's match would be $75,000. If you had to go to demo reconstruction because you couldn't elevate your home for the same price of $300,000, since FEMA has a $150,000 cap, the homeowner would pay $150,000. And so I always try to discourage consideration of demolition reconstruction because, quite honestly, it's a lot of money for a homeowner to open up their pocketbooks to get that flood protection. So hopefully, after you see the presentation, if you want to stay where you're at, and I'm not encouraging you sell your house and leave town, if you want to stay, the elevation is still very cost effective as far as it's always going to be a 75% coverage from FEMA. So what do we expect from you all if you decide to pursue this? There is some paperwork and some energy we need to coordinate back and forth. The biggest thing is your history of flooding. Do you have photographs? Have you made claims? What were the costs of those claims? How much damage did you suffer? All those important facts is what we need to make the grant stronger. We actually have a questionnaire we've developed over the years. It's about 3 pages long that we give to the homeowners that kind of helps you pull together what we need to make the grant application as strong as possible. An elevation certificate is required. Many of you may already have one, which is a 3 or 4 page form that is typically done by a surveyor, especially if you live on a lake and you buy your house. The bank will sometimes require it. That is something we will need if it's an elevation project. There are forms required by FEMA. One of them is called the voluntary participation, that we are not forcing you to do this. You're going to sleep on it, you're going to think about it, and you're going to come back and say, I'm interested, and you sign this voluntary participation form. So when I submit the applications to the state, they know that you've considered this option as far as your flood protection. There's 2 more as far as your legal status in the United States, and there's a privacy release, and I don't show the exact content of that. Layla will be here soon to help me with that. But those are the 3 forms to fill out. A structural assessment. That's usually about $1,000 for a structural engineer to kind of walk you through your house and make his initial assessment on whether the house appears to be strong enough for elevation. If you're doing acquisition only, that is not required. Once we go through the process, a contractor is hired, and then there's going to be a lot of coordination between you and the contractor to kind of guide you through the process, because it's something that anybody goes through, and you want to make sure that certain things are protected. You may have special requests regarding your pool. If you have your dog buried in the backyard, make sure he doesn't trample around that area. There's things that the contractor will have to coordinate with you directly once you get further along. And then we have numerous public meetings going through the process. Where do we stand in the grant application? How close are we getting the grant? And then it has to go to the city commission to review and approve it. Then we have to solicit bids for a contractor. Depending on the number of homes that are going to be participating, we may choose more than one contractor, because we do have a specific timeline to get the work done. And so if there's a lot of homes, we may hire 2 or 3 contractors to do the elevation throughout the community. It has to be completed or implemented immediately. The city wants to make sure, if you're interested, if you want to participate, we'll need to know fairly soon, probably within the month. So when Nicole is released for dollars, we, the city of Deltona, can aggressively start going after those dollars on behalf of the homeowners for the city for ranking consideration. And I try to be very honest in the day. I never want to mislead anybody. Not every home is a good candidate. We will find out that you may have $1 million home that only flooded once. It's going to be very difficult to make that house cost effective. If you were flooded a lot or plenty or significantly, then it will do our very best job to make sure that the house is cost effective and can get the grants. But we try to do a pre-screening or initial review of your particular case and try to tell you up front whether or not we think it's a good candidate or you got a strong case, we can move forward with the application process. So after we answer a bunch of questions this evening, we have on the table there the 3 different stacks of forms: elevation, acquisition, and demolition reconstruction. Again, remember you can't go straight to demolition reconstruction. We have to go through the elevation process first to see if your home can structurally be lifted. The city is looking for a response by June 19th. We're hoping by then we'll hear about the Nicole dollars, and we can start gathering all the information to start making our presentation to the county and all your neighbors, your city, your DeBerry, Orange City, everybody else that's going to be going after dollars, just like we did for Ian, so we can get as many of these ranked and selected for consideration to move forward with the grants. Now, that's all grant projects. Some of you may sit here and say, I don't have the ability to pay that kind of match. So we're going to talk briefly about what products are out there in the market for you to purchase and have somebody installed to protect your home in the future. There's generally 2 types of flood-proofing products. There's products that kind of block the openings of your doors and windows of your home, and then there's actually what they call water dams or devices we can put around the house to try to protect the house in its entirety. So I'm going to just go through these slides. We purposely didn't put the product name yet. If you're very interested in these, after we present tonight, let Kimberly know or Phyllis, and we'll pull together the brochures and the booklets so you guys can look into it more deeply in detail to see if that's something you want to consider. You may say, gee, I only flooded by 6 inches, and so why do I want to elevate my house 4 feet and spend all that money? If that's the case, maybe some of these products are more cost effective and beneficial. So again, we got openings for sliding glass doors. We got different types of products for the front doors or side doors or garages. These are the different types of, you may hear the word tiger dam, water dams. These are things that basically you fill with water, which will be plenty of it when it's coming for the big storm, to fill these up, and they do not move. They, once the water is inside, they pretty much keep the floodwaters on the outside and try to protect the home on the inside. Different types of products. Some are inflatable, some fold up, some slide in like a bunch of boards. There's plenty of products out there. You got to realize the Carolinas, New Jersey, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, we're not the only ones that suffer from flooding. And so many companies have developed these products over the years. And again, if you're interested, we'll put together as much literature as possible so you can look into it yourself and use it for consideration to protect your own home. Again, different devices for windows and doors. And again, different types of barriers to protect your house. There's all shapes and sizes and costs. And again, we'll make those available for those who are interested afterwards. So for that, I'm here to answer any questions you may have. My colleague is here as well to answer any questions, Layla, and we'll just take one question at a time. Yes, sir.
David, what's your title?
My official title?
Yeah,
Stormwater Department Manager. Yep. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Will you raise the streets exactly before it's flooded in the homes around?
So when we elevate these homes, let me get to the good picture. You'll notice we don't put dirt underneath them, because what's happening as the floodwaters get higher and higher, they're occupying the space because you may not be next to a river or a lake or a stormwater pond, so that bottom is purposely left without dirt. So if you were to put dirt there, there's a possibility you can push those floodwaters on your neighbors, and we can't do that. Now, we do have to pay special attention to the gutters. Once the house is elevated, how we direct that water. You don't want to shoot it in your neighbor, unless you don't like them. But, the purpose of this is making sure that once this gets elevated, we are not impacting your neighbors. And so between the grading, how that yard is regraded, and the gutters, the whole focus of this is to make sure that your neighbors are not being impacted by it. I know New Smyrna Beaches, some of those lots are really tiny. They're almost like cottages. We have like 10 feet in between, and we're doing the same thing there where they're going vertically straight up. They're adjusting the downspouts to go right to the ground and try to keep it on your own personal property. So, yes, ma'am.
I see all these products that people can buy. What does the city do to get some of this water out of it? Does the city have no plan in trying to get this water to move down to the St. Charles River where it used to drop? And I remember back in 2006, Mel, was it, when we had the big ditch?
Yes, ma'am.
And all of that nonsense, and that was not a pumping station, that was just an overflow. Why is it not still overflowing? And if the issue that Mr. Hines said is the fact that we have our drains clogged, then why are we not unclogging the drains? Because I was here working in the legal department with Roland Blossom when we went out and we got all that land and we put all those pipes in and we told everybody not to worry because we weren't pumping the water. This was a natural overflow that went right down through Lake Bethel into the St. John's River.
I'll try to answer all those questions. So, okay. All right, back to the big map here. This is Lake Teresa watershed, which is several interconnected lakes, and it's roughly 32 square miles in size. The brown, the purple, and the yellow are McGarity, Gleason. Thank you. These today have a direct connection to Lake Monroe, St. John's River. So when it rains in these three watersheds, the water doesn't get out without pump stations or any other means other than pipes and canals. The challenge has been, and I did the master plan in 1997 out here originally, was always to try to get this large watershed to have multiple discharges to the St. John's River. There's two significant hurdles to overcome. This large watershed doesn't naturally, maybe it did well before I was on this earth, doesn't naturally get to the St. John's River or Lake Monroe. So when you make all these connections, these additional connections to Lake Monroe, people on the river may experience flooding they haven't seen before. Also, from a water quality perspective, all this urban land and all the fertilizers and pesticides and the brake fluids that stay within this green area, this very large green area, when you make multiple connections, there's also a potential water quality concern that you're further polluting the St. John's River and Lake Monroe. And I know that may not be important because my house flooded, and I truly understand that, but there's a huge permitting hurdle to simply add a bunch of pumps and pipes to drain this large watershed into Lake Monroe, the St. John's River. Now, to answer your initial question, we, the city, are going after grants to try to permit 2, 3, 4 more connections either to St. John's Lake Monroe or Deep Creek to the east. And I'm going to be honest, it's not going to be easy because we're taking water that historically doesn't get there and putting it in somebody else's backyard. So I will tell you, and Kimberly and Phyllis can correct me, we are continued to fight to see if we can get grants and permits to make this happen, but it's going to be a challenge, simply a challenge, because this watershed has a very unique characteristic, which means it's all stays to itself. And yes, in 2005, they did build an overflow structure from Lake Doyle to Lake Bethel, which we got opened under the request to the St. John's Water Management District, so that was open legally through the permit, but it's like putting a straw in a bathtub. It's such a large area that one outfall does very little to move a massive amount of floodwaters out quickly. It does help lower it eventually, but as you all know, when you lived here, it took several months for those lakes to recede. And so we need more of those overflows to expedite the recovery, or to drain these lakes before the storm hits so there's some storage in the lakes to absorb the rainfall. And as some of you may know, there's been legal challenges over the years from some of your neighbors to block that from happening. So we are doing our best to abide by that, but also make sure we protect as many people as possible. That may not be the best answer you wanted to hear, but I'm just being honest as far as what we are struggling with to get this big green watershed to have multiple discharges to Deep Creek or to Lake Monroe, St. John's River. The purple already has connections, and the yellow and the brown. Well, it still ends up in the same water body. And if we dump the green into the purple, we got to make sure we don't flood the people who live in the purple. So, yes, sir.
So, Adam Vasquez from Twin Lakes Community in the Lake Leeson Basin. And when you get down towards our community, we're south of the lake of Lake Leeson, which I believe is where you have your pipe that goes to Lake Monroe. So when it comes into our community, the lake's balanced. And then it goes into a resident's backyard. So when the lake fills up, there's like an elevated drain. The outflow is just in the resident's backyard. It fills up. It turns into like another lake back there. So that's why I'm here tonight, actually, because we're a not-for-profit. We're a private community, so the city doesn't really do a whole lot with our stormwater. So I just want to understand, I guess, this program. I do know once the water goes below Lake Leeson, because we're a little bit lower in elevation, there's not a direct connection from our community into Enterprise, which is the parcel behind us. So I think that, like, if the houses are going to stay there, something has to happen on that parcel to collect all that water. You know, we need to take that outflow out of a backyard. So I'm just trying to understand how some of these programs can maybe help our community. There's 3 homes. Do they have to like knock those homes down and maybe put a pond there, or can we utilize the vacant land behind us with this program?
Good question. So tonight's presentation was more towards what can we do for the residents specifically. But if your neighborhood is suffering some drainage issues, then that becomes something that potentially the city can look at to implement a stormwater pond, a pump station, a pipe. So I'd have to go with Phyllis and others of the staff to see if it's a gated community, if it's a non-gated community, if it's private or public rights of way, if it warrants more of a neighborhood project versus just targeting out a couple houses to be elevated or acquired. But
gotcha. Yeah, we want to find the best solution. If it's the 3 homes there, you know, because that water got pretty close to one of the homes, and it stayed for a while until the city started pumping, which was a little bit of a fight because it is private and it's gated. So yeah, like whatever the best solution is there, we don't have the funding. We don't have money like put aside for that. So we are looking for grant funding or whatever. Our residents are in this the same issue.
Give me or Phyllis or Kimberly your name when you leave. We'll circle back on that specific area. So
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
Yep. So I have a question about the acquisition and demolition. How do they value your house? And you had said that you also have some responsibility in the cost of that. Do you pay the 25% for them to demolish your house? Or, I mean, how do they value it? And also, do you just walk away from it, or do you clean it out and it's just a shell? Or, I mean, can you give a little more specific information?
I'll start this one, Layla, correct me. So you're allowed to get an appraisal, and the appraisal should reflect pre-damage value. You're not going to get penalized because your home flooded and get a lower value. So you get an appraisal, you're going to get a couple of them, you don't have to stick with one, and basically appraised value, that's what we use in the application to the state to acquire your house. So say your house was appraised at $350,000, and both sides agree that that's the proper number. And we are able to make sure that it's cost effective, that the cost of acquiring it is less than the benefits derived from purchasing it. So if that gets approved, the federal government pays for 75% of that acquisition, and then the homeowner would be responsible for the 25%. And yes, you can leave behind whatever you want, or you take as much out as you want. I think some people have asked, can I take my cabinets out? Yes. I mean, if you got cabinets in there, special flooring, appliances, whatever you can get out, they're demolishing the shell of your house, and then they'll flatten it out, and it'll look like this. And then the city takes over the jurisdiction of that property for the simple fact is we can't build anything on there any further. Like I said, other than the playground or a pond.
So if it had flooded prior, then you might be in the 90 or 100% range?
If you have officially made claims, say you had flood insurance policy, if you made more than one claim or two claims, you may go in those other categories where it's repetitive loss or severe repetitive loss, then I would encourage you to go under the flood mitigation assistance, which comes out every September, and get more of a match, 90% maybe. So,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
You didn't have a claim file, but you didn't have a claim file because you protected the home out of your own pocket. Meaning that you had photographs showing water up against the home, but you were able to mitigate the water before anybody else could do anything by your own means.
If you want to repeat that, Alice, because
Okay,
it's a good
so-
question.
What if you did not file a claim because you didn't have a claim because you were successful in stopping the water from entering the home? The flood insurance doesn't kick in unless it crosses the barrier of the threshold of the home. So if you stopped it, say 1 inch, which is what I did, before it came into the home, and you mitigated the water on your property on your own, you cover that expense. But you have photographs of your home being completely surrounded by water and it not being accessible, would it qualify even though you did not file a claim in a previous flood?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but since you're proactive and you're going to throw a rock at me for saying this, it hurts you because a claim hasn't been made. But the city has fortunate enough to have done a study or a model for all the different lakes. So if the modeling shows that you would flood for certain events, we can use that as a different alternative to make you cost effective. So we try to look at claims and costs. But if that doesn't benefit or help us, we'll look at the other option, which is the modeling, which the city has spent a lot of money to have done. And if the modeling shows that your home is at risk for different events, then we'll choose that path to try to make it cost-effective versus you just giving me receipts or show me I did the best I could. I didn't flood, which is wonderful, but that can hurt you if that was the only option we had to make it cost-effective. But the modeling the city has may still outweigh your good efforts, and So.
All right, so just to clarify, we were flooded once. We're both of us here in that same situation, but we worked together as a team to protect our homes the first time it happened. So we prevented the flood from happening. This time we couldn't not because the water just came up too fast, too high. There wasn't anything we could do about it on this front, but we have documentation through photographs for the first time that it happened. So there's actually two different times that it was flooded. We just protected it the first time. This time we could not stop it.
Okay. You're still within the 75-25 breakdown. You were proactive. In the eyes of FEMA, that hurts. So like the other lady who was saying, well, if I am a repetitive loss, I qualify for 10% local match. In your case, you would only qualify for 25% local match because you don't have the flood claims. To prove FEMA needs the flood claims because they're bleeding. They need to stop the bleeding, having to pay you every time you flood. So the only way your property is attractive to them is if you have those flood claims. So they keep paying and they keep paying, so they want to stop it. So if you have all these flood claims, you may qualify as a severe repetitive loss. They pay 100%. But they have to have bled. They have to have paid you.
I get it.
So,
I understand.
yeah.
So if you have minimum claims, we'll have to resort to the modeling results to see if that'll help you better. So If you have an elevation certificate, and say your house is surveyed at elevation 80, I'm just picking a number, and the city's model shows that you would flood for a 10-year event, a 25-year event, then the modeling is a stronger mechanism to make you cost effective instead of me just getting your one claim for flooding. So we have to look at both. So, yes, sir.
David, I appreciate this, and since last year, Phyllis and I have had many conversations, and I've been in this chamber quite a few times with our city commissioners as well. How many homes do we have right now in the city of Deltona? And then how many of them actually had flood damage because of Ian or Nicole? And then based on that, with the amount of money that's already been allocated toward Ian and is gone, and you're sitting here waiting for the Nicole flood money, and you don't know what that figure is, how many homes do you actually think will qualify for any of these programs? If there's 20,000 homes that have been damaged, just like this gentleman's, there too, they may or may not qualify. But how many? I think you mentioned 16 over in New Smyrna Beach that y'all were doing the elevation. Was that a correct number?
So when Irma came, we had a town hall meeting, and I think we had a couple hundred people show up, well attended. And then we got deeper and deeper into it for those who are willing to take the next step. Asked us to go ahead and submit an application. A lot of people thought, well, it would only happen once only. We'll roll the dice and take a chance. So that number from a couple hundred went to 67, went to 33. And then we submit the application. Since it took 2 or 3 years to get the grant, more people dropped out. I'm not going to wait any longer. And so every time they dropped out, we had to resubmit those that were still in. So it's you got to be patient. You are getting 75% of the dollar to mitigate your home, but it doesn't happen quickly. And so for the city of Deltona, to answer your question, there may have been 200 people that flooded, and after tonight, maybe only 10 are interested. So 10 times, let's say an average 400,000, that's $4 million of potential projects for us to go after for Nicole.
Yeah. Now, I'm in the insurance business, and I sell flood insurance. The majority of Deltona is in the X zone, which, of course, you know, is the standard where there's absolutely, supposedly, on the 100-year flood plan, no chance of a flood. But yet, this occurred, and of course, it didn't happen on the 100-year flood plan, as you mentioned, it's the 500-year. And there's folks sitting in here that have lived here for 45 years and have never had this kind of water come in. Now, if our population is close to 100,000 folks and there's 40,000 homes here, can you go back to the big map that has the different colored pictures and show us there you go. That green area right there, according to the St. Johns River Water Management Authority, is nothing but a bowl. And there's only one little bitty straw. I went down and visited it. I looked at it. I encourage every resident of Deltona to go down there and look at that little bitty stream. Okay? The River Jordan in Israel is bigger than that thing. And I was there. And there's no water coming out of that. There wasn't a whole lot to begin with because, Phyllis, were there 3 emergency issues or 2?
2.
2 emergency issues that the city of Deltona had to make to the St. Johns River Water Management Authority to even get them to open the gate. And Phyllis and our Public Works Department did a great job in hounding them to death. But our problem is we don't have any place for water to go. And like Phyllis told me, and I understand, that the only way that water is going to get out of the Teresa Basin flood area, 2 ways. Evaporation and percolation. And God's in control of those 2 things. And we have no relief. We have no relief. Now, I understand FEMA wants to come in and spend this kind of money for these individual residents, and I'm all for that. But there's more money out there to be able to say, those few people who are blocking another big ditch to go to the 16,000 acres in the Deep Creek Preserve, let me tell you, y'all went down Elkham Boulevard and you went down Saxon Boulevard and you declared eminent domain to widen some of these roads. Well, guess what? Eminent domain would allow you to go through and put a ditch to this Deep Creek Preserve, and the same thing for the two people who filed suit against us several years ago. If you're allowing the St. Johns River Water Management and a couple of people to file suit to stop water being drained out of the DuPont Lake chain of lakes, we got a problem. And if you think 16 people are going to qualify for this kind of a program to raise their homes up, I'm all for it. Take all the government money you can get, because flood insurance is going up, not just because of this, but because of things all around the country. They're going to get their money, because she's right. They're bleeding and they're hurting.
Yep.
So flood rates are going up, but it's not going to solve our problem immediately. And if you'll walk down to the CVS drugstore on Elkham Boulevard, you can walk across those lakes, and nobody in here is Jesus, but you can do it because of all the hyssopes that are sitting there blocking a lot of that water from going underneath those drains. Now, I'm fortunate. On my 30 acres, I have a canal that goes out to Lake DuPont. I called a company out of Orlando. They came out, pulled a permit. They're spraying the hyssopes in my lake. Some of my neighbors are right here. I ain't got no more hyssopes. And the water is flowing through my canal much, much faster. But why can't we get the city of Deltona and Public Works to do something like that, to help with this water being dispersed, whether it's to Bethel or whether it's to the Deep Creek Preserve, or like this gentleman said, over here to the Gleason. Open that up. Allow that to go through there. Why can't we do that?
There's a lot of permitting hurdles to do that.
Red tape through the government. So an emergency order from Governor DeSantis for Daytona Beach, or for the Fort Myers area, or what's the island down there that they built the road?
Santa Island.
So an emergency order is good for them, but it's not good for 100,000 folks that live in Volusia County, and this is the largest county, the largest city in Volusia County. And we can't get squat, because guess where it goes?
St. Johns River.
There, and guess where? Daytona Beach. Phyllis has heard me. Are you through hearing me again? Yes, I love you too.
It's residents like you that, and the ones that are here.
We need to hear your passionate pleas. Some of our commission meetings get a little heated. I've been beat up unmercifully up here, and I'll continue to do that. I'll take that role. But they need to hear this. Your commission is very well aware of the catastrophic damages and losses that everybody has experienced, and we want to try to do everything that we can, and we are making strides, and I will tell you, far more than we ever have. We're making applications for everything. Kimberly was brought on. She searches. I mean, she sends stuff every day. I mean, my emails are just littered with, what about this, Phyllis? What about this? And we're trying to find every opportunity, but grants take a long time, not only the application.
Hurricane preparedness seminar here, and the meteorologist from Channel 13 was here, and he said, get ready for the rainy season, because it's coming, and then after the rainy season, we're going to have more hurricanes come through here. And we still got water there on Elkham Boulevard. Okay, I'm thrilled with this, and I'll help people fill out the paperwork, and I'll sell them flood insurance. But I'm telling you right now, they're not going to wait 3 years. They're going to be flooded again. And so something has to happen quickly. That's what And Phyllis is right. I'm so passionate. I still got 23 acres of pasture land that I can't even cut or walk on because guess what?
Still wet.
No, it's not wet. It's got 6 inches of water on it still. And I've lost a barn. I had to gut a barn. You know, I'm blessed in that I had flood insurance. I've got a good agent, you know, so. But yet the headaches, you know, the aggravation, the frustration, these folks, if you try to protect your home and you're penalized for it, that's wrong.
I think one of the greatest frustrations that we're all facing right now is that everybody sitting in this room knows that decisions that were made years ago are affecting everybody in this room, and everybody in this room was not taken into consideration when those decisions were made. That's the real issue here. I did not attend any of these meetings in the beginning, and the reason I didn't do it is because I knew it would be fruitless. I knew you guys had to have time to start to figure stuff out. But at this particular point, a prudent individual would have assessed the damages, assessed the reason for those damages, and start to take action to correct those damages. What happened initially to stop the flow of the natural flow of water coming out of these lakes is what's causing all of these problems. Whatever needs to be done to correct that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is what we want to see done.
So the tough decision with that is some cities have said, I'm not going to go through the grant program because I can't wait. So they have to raise their stormwater utility rate significantly to generate the revenue a lot quicker and get some projects in the ground. And that's a tough decision that the commission have to make, that people like you who express your concern, are they willing to raise the stormwater utility rate, for example, to generate far more revenue on an annual basis to chip away at these projects quicker, in lieu of waiting for the government's grant program? And those are tough political decisions.
I agree with that. However, if we opened up that floodgate that is clogging up right now and opened it up fully so that it would drain, it would give us enough leeway when the rainy season come that we probably wouldn't be flooded, and you probably wouldn't be having these meetings. The issue is not what you're doing now. The issue is that we need to go back in time and look at what caused it to start with. Because Deltona's never had this issue until that drain or a natural flow of the water got stopped up. And since that point, all this stuff has occurred. I own a business, and when I'm looking at a business, I'm thinking, okay, if I got something that's costing me money, I'm going to fix that thing that's costing me money. This has got to be costing you guys a lot more money than it would have cost to go back and undo what was done years ago. And I just want to encourage you to look at that, because at the end of the day, I know you guys are trying to avoid litigation, but litigation is coming.
Well, we're in it already. We're in it already.
Exactly. And I'm sitting here as a homeowner. I don't want to penalize the city, but I want to see the city do the right thing. And the right thing is to undo the mistake that was made by previous management. What you guys do now, you're going to own. If you correct the mistakes of the past, then you guys are going to wind up being the heroes. You really are. But if you don't, then you'll be in the same boat they are. So just want to encourage you to look at it from that standpoint and say, okay, we can do all this stuff and acquire all these grants and do all this. But if you unlock those gates and just blow them out of there and clean the ditches out and let the water flow, yeah, you're going to put a little bit more water in the St. Johns River, but that St. Johns River moves. These lakes don't. Eventually, you're going to drain these things down, and then it'll stay at a level that it's supposed to stay at naturally. But right now, we're impeding that. That's what needs to stop.
Right.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Because that is something that I wasn't aware of, that there was a, oh, thank you. I didn't even remember there being a gate. My understanding, when we put that overflow in, because I was at the overflow, when the water got up to a certain level, it just went right over through the ditch and it went out through the swamp area. That was going to clean the water before it got into the St. Johns River. So where did we put a gate in that we can now stop that natural flow? Because that was the only way we got it through.
I want to say circa 2005.
We didn't put the gate in. When it was done, there was
no gate.
No, it was never approved by those higher up in Palatka at the St. Johns River Water Management. They will tell you that to your have to file an emergency order, and they only issue it for 90 days, right? A 90-day order. So when all of that happened, almost simultaneously with Eon, and the guy gave me the dates, they filed the emergency order. But then they sat on their butts and finally approved it for us to open all 3 gates. And they did it twice, and they had you close 2 of them, did they not? Or was it one?
Well, the way the gates work is
Yeah.
there's levels. As
Right.
you get to one level, one gate closes, you get to the next level, the second one does, and then when you get to that other level, that third gate has to be closed, and that stops the flow of water.
That's correct. And so today, if you go down there, you'll see a trickle of water coming across the barrier there, going down through, like I say, a little bitty creek, okay, into Lake
But
Bell.
let me be real clear, because this is a videotaped thing. Those gates are closed. There is no water leaving that gate because that puts us in violation of our permit. There is nothing leaving that gate. The water that is left there, you go down to Audubon Park, and it's just natural water that is just getting, it's not coming from the gate structures.
And the Doyle Lake is about 6 to 8 feet deep. All the water coming in from this Deltona Lake chain, if you look at Lake DuPont, it's one of the larger lakes in the chain, goes down to Teresa, and then on down, farther down, right in there, that's where most of it goes, down there into the little Lake Doyle, which is the benchmark that they use to determine when to open or shut the gate. Not Lake DuPont, not Lake Teresa, but that little bitty lake, okay? And that's what's stopping all of this water from going down there because St. John's River Water Management won't approve.
I will tell you that we met recently, and they are receptive now to take into consideration the stair stepping of water as it gets to Doyle. So we did have I want to say a positive meeting a couple weeks ago to revisit how we monitor these lakes and when do we get the thumbs up to open up the gates.
Would it help for us to write our governor and write our congressman and submit a letter saying this is the issue, we need your assistance to get this corrected? And is there assistance in teaching people how to do that?
It's not a money issue, because I know the city is going after appropriations and grants.
And I agree, it's
Yep.
not a money issue, but what it is a bureaucratic issue at this point.
Well, there's 3 things at play here. You have Stone Island.
Yes.
You have Astor.
No one's talking about Stone Island, by the way. That's the reason why the weir is closed, right? It's because it floods Stone Island. They decided that they were going to call it the largest city in the area that we can drain our lakes. St. John's River Water Management District is a governing body, like they're a board. We can go to a board meeting and raise hell with them. You can write the board members there, right? They're not letting us open that weir, and that's why the water's not flowing out. And it really has a lot to do with Stone Island. They want to sue us because we flooded their island by opening up that weir. All of you guys should be countersuing them.
They need to know this both ways.
Well, I got to get the big picture, because there's 2 individuals, and I can't name their names, who have stopped and blocked the dam because they were afraid the city would drain the lakes. So there's a lot of competing, contradicting interests in this whole thing. So it's not just St. John's, it's not just Stone Island, it's not just Astor and Lake County. It's also some people who live in the green area that didn't want the gates open. So we're legally trying to juggle all those balls to make this improved, but I can't stand there and say, everybody show up in Tallahassee and things will change. There's different litigation elements involved in this whole process. I can't say too much. Yes, ma'am. You've been patient.
I just want to know where our voices will be better heard. Do we go to St. John's River Water Management District? Where do we need to go to have our voices heard?
I would say let myself and Phyllis and Glenn and Layla work with the districts, and if it seems like we hit a roadblock, we'll definitely ask for help. But let us go through the proper channels first and see if we can get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I know when Hurricane Ian was here, and I don't know if it was Orange City or DeBerry who was pumping down I-4 into the St. Johns River. The water was being pumped down there, and yet we can't drain out of our lakes.
And that, I know about that one because I did it years ago. And that took several years to get that approved as well.
So how can they do that, and yet our lakes
Because the
can't?
city, the green area can swallow the berry. What's pumping those few lakes are just a couple in this general area, as compared to 32 square miles of land. It's a far bigger fish to land here as far as us taking all this flood water in all these lakes, improving from a quality and a flood protection. We're not causing harm to those who live on the lake and on the river. So.
And if they lowered it now,
That they're causing harm to us by blocking.
right.
Are we being proactive to get that gate open before we start the rainy season and our hurricane season?
We can't
Well, I
open it.
know we can't. No, I said, are we being proactive and requesting permits based on the fact that so many of us are still flooded from Ian and Nicole?
We watch the water level. If it gets to a certain elevation, we make a request. I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say it's 24.5. No, I might be off.
That's down there.
On Doyle.
On Lake Doyle, no? And that's part of the problem. Right. Whereas you got 50 foot deep in DuPont, because it's still flooded, they go by what's at Lake Doyle.
We're in the process of changing that, so be patient.
So we are being proactive. It's just is, I'm going to be as transparent as I can. It is a slow and arduous and painful process. And it's painful for us, and I can only imagine those that have been impacted. It's 1,000 times worse, and it's not as if we're not doing anything, because we are. It's just not going to happen quickly, and if I told you otherwise, Jerry, you know, you've been around here, it's not an easy process.
dealing with 30 years. Is there any way to ask the Corps of Engineers, or even maybe the city of Deltona, to cough up some money to come in on the lakes and at least clean out the hydrants that would help in the flow of the water?
All of that also requires permits. So it's not something that can't be done.
But I got a permit to do my canal, Phyllis. I mean, I called down to Orlando, the guys came out there and they interviewed me and they came right out. It took them about 45 days to get the permit. Once a month, they're out there to spray the hydrants in my canal.
And those are things that we are thinking about. How can we, you know, as we look at our stormwater rates, and I'm going to be transparent, we're looking at raising them. The city has not raised their stormwater fee for
But you
5
have a
years.
cushion of money too.
Not in our stormwater fee.
No, but it is in other areas as far as their
Right,
own
but
taxes.
stormwater is a specific fund, so that being said, we're looking at that, we're looking at other options. How can we, with what we're dealing with now, can we do some improvements that are minor permitting type programs? So
But then a private citizen like myself that lived on Elkham Boulevard on that little bitty part of Lake DuPont that backs up there to Elkham. And if I were to call this particular company and they come out and interview me and they issued me a permit as a private citizen to spray because I live on Lake DuPont, that can easily be done within 30 or 60 days. But for the city to do it, you can't.
because we would be spraying the entire lake, and
Yes, ma'am.
that's a different thing. You're only spraying the shoreline and out a little bit.
Can I get the names of everybody who lives on the lake? And maybe we can all pool together
Excuse me, I'm
and,
trying to tell you what the hurdles are that we go through every day.
so we'll help you. The Lord will take you just $100 a month. You can have these types of stuff.
David, like that in here. I've lived in West Volusia since 1970. I've seen Deltona go from 1,800 people to what it is now. What are we doing, and this is a problem that's going to get worse. What do you have for new development input on their stormwater retention? We went through this with the little development here that just took place. Development's only going to get worse, guys, so it's coming. Florida's 1,500 people a day moving there, so it's only going to get worse. And you kind of touched on that. What input do you have when these developers submit these plans to, I shouldn't say put the kibosh on, but at least deal with retaining their own water so they don't impact places like the Little Lake Tiny area that I've got a rental home and a bunch of other people that live down there. One individual, she's lived there, she's in her 30s and she's lived there all her life. She was born there. So the development, come to the meetings, voice your opposition to the thing, get bigger retention, ponds to house these things. They're building these lots smaller and smaller. So I think more input from your department to planning and development goes a long way. And I don't know what kind of input you do have, but if you can be more proactive in that stance.
Phyllis does on the complicated ones, likes to throw them my way, to give my 2 cents. And there are some that are stuck. I'm not approving them because I'm concerned, and others are doing the right thing.
Because Island 2 is going to be an issue. I have a piece of property that's right down from it. That's the micro part. But I have to at least give you applause, too, and this is Phyllis's side, too, that they are doing things out there, guys. I have a house that I've had for a couple years now. The area back behind it got cleaned up very nicely. The guys came in a couple days. They cleaned the back. But, maybe it's an area that the city looks at maybe developing or excavating or doing something to get more relief so when these storms do come. But,
There are some cities that are looking to increase their standards.
Yeah.
Orange County is going to do a round of public meetings, I want to say in May and June, for considering making their standards more restrictive. We work for Winter Springs. They just approved making their stormwater standards a little bit more robust. But there's the developing community, and then there's the public sector. We're trying to protect everybody. And the developing community is strong and vocal, but Winter Springs bit the bullet and did it. And Orange County is considering it. And so the other thing is that the city of Deltona has the appetite to consider ramping up their criteria. There's so many different options a community can look at. But there's also private rights and what their person's allowed to do in their property within reason.
Yeah, they have vested rights. I understand all those issues, but because I've been a developer too, and I got out of it because it just got to be so contentious with everybody that didn't really want to allow you to do what you wanted to do, even within the parameters. But and there's a balance. There's a balance between good development and poor development.
Yep.
But the development that they just passed on Howland Boulevard, for all those rental houses right there by the fire department and our center, do you know in their plan when I was here?
But it's coming.
You know where their water's going? Teresa?
I know. I don't disagree with you.
Hold it.
Don't disagree, but just become more active.
And all that land where the water is saturating, and you're going to put pavement and houses and tennis courts and swimming pools, and all the water's going to be drained where? And to the Teresa Basin, where it doesn't go.
So just become more active. When you start seeing this thing pop up. But Phyllis, and thank you for what you.
Everybody's sitting right there voted on it. And then it went to the planning and zoning, and everybody passed. Because they had big lawyers.
David, you made a point earlier, when the St. John's won't take anything, the only option is evaporation and percolation. And the gentleman over here said mistakes happened. I think they're still happening. Right next to Jerry, there's a home going in on a little cul-de-sac where they put a mountain up there, put a home on it. Where's that water going to go? It's going back to Jerry's house. Now you take a home you just raised with pillars. You say you're not filling the underneath because you want to allow water to go in there. So you can't have it both ways. You build a mound next to Jerry, should have put that house on pillars so it would have a place for water to go. I'm just saying, you know.
Well, the difficulty for Deltona, like Cape Coral, Edgewater Shores, Lehigh Acres, I've been throughout the entire states, are these large platted communities that are grandfathered to keep building houses without being required to build a pond. So if you're a brand new subdivision or a commercial development, you have to meet the current standards. But if you're part of these large planted communities, Palm Coast, they're all over the state of Florida, all these vacant lots can continue to be developed and not have any stormwater criteria required because they're grandfathered in the bigger picture. So I hear what the gentleman in the back is saying about new development. And I'm not blaming anybody, but these older master communities are allowed to keep building rooftops on them without offsetting the cumulative impact of all these new, and Deltona is exploding with rooftops.
If they're a problem child, take them by eminent domain. Bye-bye, you're gone.
I mean, I'm from Cape Coral. I've seen it firsthand, from looking like a prairie to it's approaching numbers like Deltona. And there's not a lick of ponds out there because all those are individually platted lots in a master plan community. So that's, you know, Edgewater Shores is the same thing. So those are the other constraints, because now the city has to continue to develop drainage projects to offset the cumulative impact of all these unplatted or undeveloped lots at this point. So it's not an easy solution. There's a lot that the city is wrestling with.
One last thing, is the city underinsured? I mean, we all try and take care of our own, you know, business, our own, everything around us, but you're relying on FEMA here almost to take care of everything, federal money. So where's the, you know, I'm doing it myself thing?
There are plenty of people I've met over the years, they just pull their bootstraps up and they did it themselves and they go on with their life. And some people don't have the financial or physical ability to tackle that situation on. So this is just a alternative for those who've had enough, that they would consider this as an option.
Okay.
And you may leave tonight and say, I don't have the time or the money to deal with it. I'll buy some flood-proof and things that'll protect my house, and I'll do what I can to help my neighbor. But there's, you know, it's a tough decision to try to sell you on something when the check to do the match is pretty significant. Like Layla said, if you're fortunate enough to get the 90% grant or the 100% grant, it's a no-brainer. But to say to go after 75% grants, I don't know when you bought your house to hide the market. If you got it super cheap, maybe it makes financial sense to go this route. There's a lot of things you have to ponder before you make that decision. So.
To know if the city had a surplus somewhere.
Oh, yeah. So there's no, I mean, I'm back to the insurance thing. Is Deltona underinsured? Aren't you responsible for some of this?
Don't we have surplus? You want to know, is there a surplus in the city of Deltona?
Does the city have surplus? I can't speak on behalf. I don't know if they got.
We can't speak to that. That would be a risk management, a leadership decision. I think some of the surplus that you may be referring to is finance strives very hard to have a very robust reserve account for these type of things, because all of this storm, the amount of money that the city has expended for everything, you know, not necessarily, we can carry that while we make application to FEMA for the reimbursement, and hopefully we'll be very successful and get, you know, 99% of everything that's been expended. That money would go back into your reserve accounts to basically be prepared for the next storm event.
And we ended up buying a bunch of houses back in '04 that permits were allowed to be pulled by general contractors that were at that time below the pavement level, and they were flooded, and so the city was sued, and we ended up buying the homes out of our fund, and the residents left, and we demolished the homes, and now they're part of the retention pond, most of them, because even if you drive down Elkham Boulevard just before you get to Fort Smith, if you look to the left there, you'll see about 2 or 3 houses, and all you see is the top of their roofs, because they go down into technically what now should have been a retention pond that's one across the street. But we issued permits for a general contractor to build those houses.
I had it's not really a question, but a concern. When you talked about pursuing the grants for raising Elkham because being underwater for the period of time that it was, well, when you're on the one side going to keep the water more from flowing down the Teresa Basin? I mean, what safeguards would be in place?
Well, there'll be a bridge or more culverts to allow the water to go on both sides. We're not just going to raise it and fill it. We got to make sure we put adequate number of additional pipes because we want to equalize these lakes. When you drive around, even though for many years we've been told all these lakes are interconnected, well, in the perfect world, that means these lakes go up and down the same elevation, but they don't. Some are clogged with weeds, some pipes are too small. So another huge hurdle the city is dealing with is inventorying every one of these pipes and see which ones need to be enlarged so we can equally distribute all the water in these lakes and they can go up and down instead of this lake being 2 feet higher than this lake and this lake is 1 foot higher than this, and all this is predicated on the lowest lake at the bottom of the hill. So all this is being discussed with the district about improving what we lived through with Ian. So.
Now, is that something that can actively be done by the city, or is this something that has to be the grants and the permits and all that kind of stuff? The piping, the size of the pipes being brought?
Well, the city will determine the number of pipes and all that kind of stuff, but that will be part of the design. Well, we have to submit the grant. Now, the city may say, this happens as well, Layla and I may submit a grant for a city, and they may say, I can't wait 3 more years. We'll just do it ourselves. And that's a decision the commission got to make. If they want to say, we can't afford to have Elkin Boulevard be at risk for next season, and they may say, Phyllis, hire a consultant, this is design it and elevate it, and don't worry about the grants. But that's not my call. That's
And this Teresa Basin flood study is supposed to do just that. We're going to be conducting a comprehensive evaluation of the entire basin to do just this: determine the existing restrictions, identify the improvement methods that need to be had, assess the adequacy of the pipe sizes to allow the unimpeded conveyance of water to flow south, tailor the modifications to safeguard our community assets, and really try to come up with innovative, environmentally friendly solutions to maximize the basin's efficiency and protect our public property. So that is the intention of this basin study. We are fully funded for this study right now. We got state appropriations with the governor's signature. We will have $600,000 to conduct this comprehensive study to be able to not only report and do the public outreach that is necessary to inform our community of what we're doing, but at the end of the study to be able to really evaluate and offer options not only to our community but for our leadership to make decisions, data-driven decisions, to truly try to mitigate a lot of the issues that are existing and that have occurred just by virtue of the intensity of the hurricanes that have come. So we were able to determine that we did experience 500 and 1,000-year storms in certain areas. Every month at St. John River's governing board meetings, you have Christina Bundy. She's the Water Resources Bureau Chief, and she provides a comprehensive 5-minute overview of what all of our basins are doing in the region to the board so that they have a true understanding of what is occurring on a month-to-month basis. So if you were to refer to the December governing board meeting and look at her 6-minute presentation, you'll get a complete overview of the technical aspect that had to do with the rainfall that we experienced before Ian, after Ian, to Nicole, to really get a comprehensive overview of why there were such catastrophic events that occurred within our city. So to your point and to the residents' point, we're hoping that this basin study is going to truly help us evaluate a lot of those questions and a lot of those answers that you need in order for us to make the right infrastructure improvements to our system and hopefully be able to address the legal issues that we've been having with the management authority regarding St. John River's Water Management Authority and what has been occurring in relation to the outfall.
So if I forget to tell everybody before you leave, again, there's 3 stacks of paper. You can pick whatever one you think you're interested in. You can take all 3 of them and just sleep on it. And then also if you're interested in the flood-proofing products, let Phyllis or Kimberly know, and Layla and I will pull together all the different brochures and pamphlets to look into those for your own well-being while you're waiting for a decision on what you want to do with your home. And the reason I'm not trying to push the individual, you all think about it, because the green area, the study is going to take a long time, and they get the money to pay for it. So if you just feel like you're at risk, sleep on it and decide whether or not you want the city to pursue the grant on your behalf for moving forward. So there's no more, I got more
I
questions.
just have one more
Yeah,
question.
but don't worry about it. We're here to.
Is there FEMA assistance for flood control products?
No, they do not, unfortunately.
Okay.
Some businesses do, but not individual homeowners. And the reason why, and maybe it's a practical reason, they're assuming you might be there, that you can actually set it up and deploy it. There could be a chance you'd be on vacation. So they paid money for that product and they couldn't even use it. So they're looking for things like elevating or acquisition or drainage projects the city can do. But for these individual projects, they don't cover that, unfortunately. So, yes, ma'am.
We have probably 15 to 20 times 30 to 40 foot high around there. We've been able to get into our property after the storms. We could put that debris out for the FEMA trucks to pick up. We are now just able to get to a few of those trees. Is there any provision for the city, for those of us that were flooded and still have cleanup to go? Is there any provision for assistance for that? It would have been provided had we been able to get into our property to cut the trees, but we can't. We're Mel's neighbors. We're flooding also.
So I believe that falls under the public assistance program, which maybe, I think that clock is,
It's closed.
okay.
But if I can get a list of people who fall into that category and may need some assistance, let me see what we can do. We can either maybe hire a contractor to come in and do it, or our staff can come in. We have bucket trucks, we have clamp trucks, see what we can do to try to help and assist those. Okay.
And I asked last night at the seminar for the hurricane, because I've got a big pile out on some of my property, and I asked if I could have a bonfire and a marshmallow roast. And you want to guess what the answer was?
You have to get a permit.
That's exactly right.
No, can I tell, all you got to do is just get a grate and throw it over the fire, throw a hamburger on it, and they can't say a word. That's the truth. And the fire department guy told me that.
Better be a big burger.
Well, they have been gracious in not requiring us to pull a permit to cut down all of the trees, because I just had 2 weekends ago 20 of mine cut down. And so they're laying there for me to cut up in firewood. If anybody needs any good firewood, come down on Wiggly Barnes Road. It's free.
We both of us we just did the same thing actually this week. I had, I think it was 13 trees put off my property. I'm not sure how many that they did, but I think one of the things that everybody needs to understand is these trees have not yet all died.
Right.
I have got probably somewhere close to 40, 50 pine trees that are 60 to 70 feet tall on my property. And when there's some of those trees that the power company's going to take out because they are going to die and they want to take out power. There's anything can be done about that. But what's happening here is you've got a group of individuals that really have no idea the financial loss that they're going to incur yet, because it has not happened yet. And one of the things I think would probably bring some reassurance is that there were funds that were set aside and the city took into account that is going to be a process, and where those who cannot afford to do it, as we just literally spent over $10,000 getting the property cleaned up, and I can show receipts for that if anybody wants to see them.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, not everybody's going to be able to afford to do that, and we're hurting the citizens of Deltona because we are not thinking through what the real damages are going to be. And it would really be nice if somebody had. Now, I'll tell you, in my case, we have a church family. Our church family stepped up. It took 3 months for me to get a flood insurance check. If it had not been for a church family, us living off-site, I had physical water in my home 56 days. FEMA could not get on my property for 74 days. So they couldn't even come in to assess it. So here we're talking about stuff, and trying to fix stuff, and we really don't even know what that stuff is because it has not all, it just hasn't happened yet. I raised a septic tank. FEMA doesn't cover that. I had to move a septic tank 300 feet and put in a new drain field. FEMA doesn't take care of that. Had a destroyed driveway 200 feet long. FEMA doesn't cover that. Nobody covers it. Insurance don't cover that. So at the end of the day, it would be nice to see the city become very proactive in getting back to what we talked about before and fixing the problem that's causing this instead of trying to deal with the problem as it's happening. One thing will fix this, and that is to open up those waterways and let the water flow out naturally as God designed it to do. And when you start messing with the land, you're going to cause problems. And that's exactly what the city's done. I would much rather see all the grant money and all the financial resources go into fighting St. John's water management and fix this as a problem, fix this problem for once and for all. And if you have to, buy the two people who sued us in the beginning. Instead of sacrificing 1,000 homes, let's just sacrifice 2. So it appears to me that our focus may be a little off here. And with that, I'll shut up. Sorry.
I do want to compliment the man, the mom of the 2 children. I'm amazed they sat through this long. I'm very impressed. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. When someone just gives up their home and you take it over and it's just not pastoral or whatever, have you guys ever dredge it or, make your drainage ditches bigger in that area?
A lot of times when we acquire the home, we then turn them into ponds in the neighborhood. So they do have a beneficial side effect when you get it. Yep.
And in Jerry's case, that's probably what you do.
We'll make Lake Windsor bigger, unfortunately, in his backyard. Yep. I want to thank everybody tonight for showing up. I know it's many of you come straight from work or school. If you have any more questions, ask Kimberly, Phyllis, and they'll get a hold of Layla and I. But we'll do whatever we can to help you if you decide to look for some help here. So. All right, the lady in the blue, Kimberly, when you take the forms home, if you decide you want to fill out and submit it, they just go to her attention, whether it's today, next week, or by June, I think it was 29th or whatever the date was. So. 19th, sorry about that. Thank you very much.